Hello and welcome back to Mind Milk T20. My name's Jim and today we're going to do a video entitled Fury of the Small. Today is going to be a quick discussion video in which I talk to you about my twin loves of art and D&D. So there is a connection between my sketchbook discipline and the things that I bring to D&D, the way that I organise my character sheet, my spell sheet and that kind of stuff. And when I realised that connection, I thought, oh, that's a really interesting thing to talk about and discuss. So, there's character sheets, there's spell sheets, there's the player's handbook, there's your dice. You might have a dice tray or a dice tower to roll your dice in. Like, there's all this stuff that a player will bring along with them, and there's tons of ways to organize that stuff, from folders to like clever boxes and things like that. There's a whole industry built around keeping your player organized, and I don't do it in any of those ways. I do it by reducing scale. And that's something I enjoy. You'll have seen it on other videos on this channel, the miniature dice that I used. There's a video where I did a review of miniature dice, and as a kind of a joke I made a miniature dice tower that's about that big. I genuinely use that every week in our game. That's been my go-to dice tower, my go-to dice. My character sheet I've also reduced to A5 size from the standard A4, which is, you know, US letter size. So imagine cutting that in half. That's the size of character sheet I use. Reducing everything on the table down by half, it means I take up half the room and it's much easier to keep organized. I use spellbook cards and I keep them in a little A5 folder too. So everything's kind of super organized because it's super small. Organization is only one aspect of why I love to keep things small. It's also about, it's just cool. Like, I have this visceral kind of yes whenever I see something that's tiny. I'll give you an example. This is my favorite games console of all time. It's the Game Boy Micro, the last iteration of the Game Boy Advance. And I love this thing. A lot of people complain that it's too small, but I love that form factor, and this probably gets played as much as any other console. I'm a big gamer, by the way. In my other pocket here I have a pocket sprite. I do genuinely use this when I'm on long trips. Obviously it's a modern emulation machine, but this is supposedly the smallest games console in the world. It will play Game Boy, Game Boy Color and Sega Game Gear games. It's good and it's small. Like, I have this obsession with small things. Sketchbook. Something you'll always need at your D&D table, and something an artist will always need, is a pencil. Now, if I'm not wearing my hat, I use the pencil from my tiny pencil case. So this pencil case I made just from an old piece of leather, stitched it together by hand, so it's kind of very rough and ready, but inside I keep a biro, a mechanical pencil with a normal lead and one with a blue lead, and this I carry with me all the time everywhere I go, and it means I've always got pens with me when it comes to playing D&D. And the reason I carry this with me all the time is because I carry my sketchbook with me all the time, which I've just produced from my other pocket. So this is an A7 sized notebook, sort of moleskin style book, and this I've started using as my like full-time sketchbook. And one might think that it's too small, and it is small. There are obviously drawbacks, but the amazing thing that I've got with this sketchbook is that it's always with me. Whenever the inspiration strikes, whenever I want to take a note, I have my sketchbook with me. If I'm getting bored somewhere, hey, I can open this up and do some doodles. Be thinking about work, generating new work all the time, because I've always got my sketchbook with me, and I think there's something really advantageous about that. One of the other reasons I would recommend using a small sketchbook if you're an arty type, if you're a designer type, is that it restricts you. You have to perhaps like reduce your image or your idea down to its essence in order to fit everything on the page. It makes you you know, if you're not very good at thumbnailing, I'm not very good at thumbnailing things. That's where you make a kind of a small study of something before you work on a larger piece. I'm not good at that because I always want to go big. If you've got a small sketchbook, you're doing thumbnailing all the time, no matter what. So I find this invaluable. Having this small sketchbook changes everything for me, because my sketchbook discipline is not that great. Like, I'm not good at sitting down, taking time in the sketchbook to really develop ideas, which is the whole point of having a sketchbook in the first place. But by having this one, I can like draw in it while I'm watching TV, or if I've got, you know, waiting for a train, whatever it is. It's so useful. Basically, I'm here just to advocate for making everything smaller. Like, I'm obsessed with things being small and just kind of just right. So for instance, I showed you my Game Boy earlier. Game Boy games, the cartridges come in these cases which are too big to my mind, so I made my own cases. This one again made of leather, it can keep a couple of games in there. Here's another one made from felt. Okay, I have to admit, this love of things being small may not be for everyone. It might just be me. Not everyone goes from a room in their house to a tiny shed for their studio. Not everyone gets that same kind of joy out of things being small that I do. I'm aware that this is a peculiarity. So the other thing I want to advocate for is find a thing that gives you joy. What is the way that it works for you? And then make something that's gonna let you achieve that. So for years, I carried around a full-sized pencil case so that I could carry my favourite pencils with me. But then that meant I had to carry a bag all the time. I was always carrying a bag around, and that was fine, but I didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't the best for me. And then when I found these tiny pencils, these brilliant, like really decent mechanical pencils that are also teeny tiny, that was a revelation. But these guys don't need a massive pencil case, they only need something tiny. Now, tiny pencil cases, they don't really exist, so I had to make my own. And so having made this, and I've got my sketchbook, I have the perfect thing for me in the way that I work. And I had to make the thing because the thing didn't exist. The same goes for the Game Boy. I love the fact that this is so small that I can carry it in my pocket, but storing the cartridges that go inside to play the games, the storage for those is often quite bulky if you go out and buy something. So I, again, had to make my own. If I wanted to carry my Game Boy games around with me in a factor that suited what I enjoy, I had to make my own. And you've seen in my previous video, I decided I really liked these tiny little dice. So I made a dice tower that was scaled to them. And you get a double whammy of joy out of that. You get the joy of having made something yourself, and you're working with something that is utterly unique and utterly yours. And you also get the joy of having your stuff being completely fit for purpose and the way that you use it. You're not having to compromise because the way that someone else has made something is not quite the way that you do it. And that is the power that comes from the fury of the small. I don't know what I'm on about. So yeah, that's it guys, that's my video on the fury of the small and why I like small stuff. I guess I haven't done too good of a job of explaining why I like things so small, and maybe I can't. It's kind of a thing that you know, it's just a quirk, it's just a thing. And maybe it doesn't need to be explained. The thing that's important is to remember, like, when you find a thing that you enjoy, that's going to make your life easier, whether that be as an artist in your sketchbook or as a gamer at your gaming table. Pursue making that happen, even if that means you got to make something yourself, especially if that means you get to make something yourself, because therein lies the joy and the fun. I don't know, this is like a weird rambly kind of video that we're trying out here. I don't know if it's working. Is it working? I don't know. Tell me in the comments. I'll see you next time. Bye.